From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Coach Al said, I'm going to let you in on a secret. He says Denver is one of the only teams, it probably is the only team, that has their preseason practices at the training facility in front of the media and the fans. And so I left. I came back the next day, and they drafted me in the 14th round. So I go to 3-day trial. You said it there in front of the fans and the media. I'm asking for a 3-day trial of quarterback. That's all I want. It's a 3-day trial so I can showcase my skills. And after that, I'll go to defensive back. But if Coach Al hadn't told me that, history would never have been made.
For Broncos fans, and especially those that are familiar with Broncos history, Monday was a very sad day with the passing of Marlin Briscoe. Briscoe was drafted in the 14th round of the 1968 draft. Although his experience at the University of Omaha was a quarterback, at 5'10" and 177 pounds and also black, he took the field in Broncos training camp at corner. After a slew of devastating injuries to Denver Broncos quarterbacks, Marlin Briscoe was pressed into serve under center and became the NFL's first black quarterback to start an NFL game. Briscoe finished out the season and electrified crowds in the process. He went on to set the Broncos' rookie record for touchdown passes, a record that still stands today over John Elway.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to the 25th season and this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, a tribute to Marlin Briscoe. We have 3 guests joining us today, 2 in the studio and 1 via Zoom. First, Dr. Bill Wakefield, a professor in the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice at UNO. He joins us today as the NCAA Faculty Athletics Representative, a role he's had since 1999. Seated next to him is Gene Haynes, a board member for the Nebraska High School Sports Hall of Fame. He also served as a teacher and administrator in Omaha Public Schools for more than 50 years. And finally, joining us via Zoom is Nick Ferguson, a former safety in the NFL. He spent most of his career with the Denver Broncos. Thank you all so much for being here and welcome.
It's a pleasure.
All right.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You bet. Nick, I want to start with you. How would you describe Marlin Briscoe?
Well, I would describe him as a gentle giant. And the reason I say that because obviously he was a small man in stature at 5'10", 170 pounds, but he was a giant when it comes to the game of football. To be the first doing anything is a feat within itself, but being the first African-American quarterback in the NFL at a time where African-American quarterbacks were not even viewed in that regard. So he was a mountain of a man. He's made a large impact on the NFL.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Bill, I want to say longtime friends and admirers had similar things to say about this man at a celebration of life actually held at Baxter Arena recently. What can you tell us about that event?
That was a great event. I just am so pleased to be here to talk a little bit about Marlin. And that event, it was a real tribute to him. It was organized and arranged by our faculty, our athletics department, and the administration of the university. 9:30 on a Saturday morning.
For decades, going back as far as
we just looked up, and here was John Beasley, and he was the MC, and he, of course, as a well-known actor, he did a fantastic job, and it just brought back so many good memories. It was a heartwarming experience to be at this event. There were several speakers, including Roger Sayers, and also Johnny Rogers was one of the speakers. It was opened with our chancellor, Dr. Lee was there, and she spoke, and so did Adrian Dowell, our athletics director. But it was a good group of people that just came together for this particular purpose to respect Marlon and all that he'd done. He had such a great career here at UNO, but it was Omaha University at the time. I had the pleasure, I know it does, I don't look this old, but I was in school with him, and and I got to see most of his games from that he played for Omaha University. And as a matter of fact, and I'll just give you an anecdote real quick, last time I saw Marlon, Gene, you might appreciate this, I said, Marlon, I said, I played in all of your games at UNO. And he looked at me kind of quizzically, and he said, you did? What position did you play? And I said, I was in the band. I was in the marching band. So I was there for every game. But Marlon, what a tribute to him. He just exemplifies everything associated with the term student athlete, good student, and a community member too.
Wow, thank you. And Gene, I think to understand the significance of what we're going to be talking about today, we need to take our viewers back to the beginning with Marlon and South Omaha. Talk about what it must have been like for him to grow up in South Omaha.
Well, Kathy, I want to say thank you for inviting me, and also on behalf of the Nebraska High School Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame, it is indeed a pleasure for me to come and share, to recognize the contribution that a person of the magnitude of Marlon Briscoe, meant to many, many people here in Omaha, Nebraska, and especially South Omaha. And going back and reading all of the information, about this young man that we're talking about here, is the fact is that at third grade, I think when he was in third grade, he was introduced to athletics. Okay, and I think one of the African American, educators did contribute something to him to really keep him interested, and he did it on his lunch break. He was working at the packing house at the time, Mr. Bob Rose, and Mr. Rose, took him over some sports memorabilia and equipment, and the first thing he picked out as a third grader was a football, and he stuck with that during his particular career, in youth football and youth athletics. And so it was a great opportunity to read all that information and just magnify all of the things that a person of Marlon's caliber, contributed to society. And that was one reason why he was elected to the Nebraska High School Sports Hall of Fame, is because of his commitment. And he'd never forget from which he'd come. And the mission statement for the High School Hall of Fame is honoring the past to inspire the future. And Marlon was the epitome of that person to inspire the future. And he continued that legacy throughout his lifetime.
What's really cool, especially when you do programs like this, is to do a little bit of homework on these people. And I learned a little bit about this magic box, right? You talked about the football and how he would go and just continue to throw this football. So as he's building his arm, little did anybody know what kind of a career that young man was building. Talk about, and you referenced it a bit, but so he goes from elementary school, junior high, into South High School. Talk a little bit about, if you would, maybe highlights of his football playing days there at South.
Well, read that magic box that you referenced to, is the fact was a great piece of material to read. And from Highland School, then he went to South High School, and I think it was a ninth grader, he was at South. And, he tried out for quarterback, and he wanted to be, that's what position he wanted to play, and, he, stuck with that. And his junior year, I think, Marlon was sharing time with another athlete, and the coach at South High at the time said, we need a running back because we graduated our great running back last year, which would have been Marlon's sophomore year. Come junior year, we wanted to continue that legacy, and they had a losing record. I think there was something like 0-12, and then his junior year when he moved back to that running back position, Marlon said he didn't do it because he wanted to. He did it because it was the best for the team. He was team oriented, and that first ball game, his junior year, and that new position, they was playing crosstown rivalry Creighton Prep, and they beat Creighton Prep, that night, and so that was a highlight of their, season, and they continued to do great things, and he finished his senior year, and it was time for college, and of course, a figure that was very instrumental in his selecting University of Nebraska at Omaha was the late coach Al Coniglia. Was very interested in the young man and his progress. He'd watched him and saw what he could do, and he felt that he could enhance his program. And so Marlon ended up graduating from University of Nebraska at Omaha, and at the time they call it Uno as the card, I guess. There was a card that they had put out there that that the university was they referred to it as, and so it's history from then on because of the great things that he contributed to life, and he never forgot we, not I. It's we that Marlon always referred to, and that's what's so special, for me. And it was a great person. And then I guess then you look at some of the other things that he did along the way is he paved the way for himself and other, outstanding honors. As an honor student, okay, proud of that. And Marlon had some great tutors in the field of education. And one was a black head wrestling coach at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. And that was the late Dr. Don Benning, was an assistant football coach and head wrestling coach here at the university. And so he, helped this young man blaze a trail as he was going through and making great things in his area of athletics.
Well, Bill, I think he's set quite a stage for you, Gene has, because he's introduced us so beautifully to Marlon's college days. And I really want you to elaborate. So, Gene, we're going to pass the ball, right? Yeah. I did it. I used my analogy of football. That's the only one you're going to get from me. So we're going to pass the ball to Bill. And I want to go back for a minute. Sounds like such an extraordinary young man. Decides to go to Omaha University. I don't know. Could he have gone other places? I would imagine so. Why Omaha University?
Well, I think that's a good question. And I think, because I knew him then, that he wanted to go to a place where he could get a quality education along with being successful on the playing field. And Marlon, what I remember early days, is he took the word student athlete very seriously. It was student first, athlete second. And I think he exhibited that by majoring in mathematics and succeeding in mathematics and the education side of things. And that wasn't that was a very challenging major at that time, obviously, and then to go out on Saturday and have people watch him throw a football, that was the duality of a student athlete. And And I think that's why people respected him so much, not only for his playing, but all the other contributions he's made to the community, and then later on in his life, from what the education he received, etc. He was very active in the community, and with youth education and modeling behavior for some of the young people in Omaha, for sure.
I would imagine that we have viewers, and myself included, we look at some of these young people and they are doing so much in so little time, and they're doing it all so well.
Right.
What's the secret to that, Bill? I mean, is there one? How can you get out of college with all of that behind you? Not to mention the Hall of Fame, too, which we'll talk about in a second. But how does he do that?
Well, it took a lot of effort, and I think that Al Canigula played a very big role in his life, because he wanted Marlon to be on the football field, obviously, but he encouraged him to be a good student. And I think that it was reflected in his years of playing in the pro ball, and also after he retired, and the kinds of efforts that he made in the community. He seemed to be very strong in putting things together, like time to study, and being focused on those types of things. And not to any devaluation of what he did on the football field, but it worked together. And I think for a lot of our student athletes, I see them all the time, every day, and I think that they're amazing. That just like Marlon did, they can put together and focus on similar things all the time. I'm just amazed at some of the accomplishments of the college student now. And at that time, Omaha University was a good choice. It was his hometown, and he wouldn't have to worry about the distractions of, I don't know, Gene, if you might agree with that. He didn't have to worry about the distractions of being in another college town and getting to know people. He was here, so he could go to class, and he could go out on the football field and excel.
Is it true that he was the first Maverick to be inducted into the College Hall of Fame?
Yeah, that's your 1975.
No small task.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit, Bill.
Yeah, that was a tremendous honor for him. I mean, he broke a lot of different records and areas, and he certainly just brought a lot of great feelings from the community of Omaha, from the Omaha University. And I see that you're showing a picture of his statuette. We've honored him here. He has a statue on campus. You can see it. It's over by the Pep Bowl, and it's a wonderful statue.
Yeah. Well, I want to change gears now and go from college play to professional. And we're going to bring Nick back. Nick is joining us, Nick Ferguson, live via Zoom. And I want to talk to Nick here a little bit in terms of, welcome back, Nick.
Welcome.
All right. The 14th round of the NFL draft. Okay, so for those of us who are not real versed at football, the 14th round, talk to us about kind of his journey into that, just so that we fully understand what transpired here in that 1 year he played for Denver.
Well, usually when the player gets drafted in the 14th round, obviously most teams are thinking that those players are not going to make teams, and there are not a lot of high expectations for that individual. And if you know Marlon at all, you know that he was one of those types of individuals that he was never going to be told what he could not do. And when you go back to, I think it's 1968, and then head coach for the Denver Broncos, Lou Saban, he's down a couple of quarterbacks. He's in the fourth quarter. He needs someone to come in. And Marlon now has to go in, and he has to try to rally his team and try to win this ball game. And knowing as though he didn't really anticipate that he would actually play in that game, but he did. And who knew that he would go on to have the run that he did? I mean, that year, 14 touchdowns and 5 games, and 4 of those touchdowns came against the Buffalo Bills. So he was an extraordinary player, even though he was a small man in stature. And if you wanted to compare Marlon then to any player in the NFL now, I would say look at the quarterback we have now here in Denver and Russell Wilson, and even Arizona and Kyler Murray, based on size and ability. And Marlon was just extraordinary as a passer. And here's the crazy thing. Marlon didn't really have that many plays. I think he went in with 6 plays, but he was able to fight back and put the team in a position to win. Even though they didn't win, he officially became a starter in the NFL the following week, which now made him a huge part of NFL history.
And that, yeah, in just 1 year, I have to ask, how do you know him? Talk about your relationship with Marlon Briscoe.
Well, I used to host a show here, the Nick and Cecil Show on 104.3 The Fan. And when Russell Wilson signed with the team, I was looking for someone that can really give me the lay of the land when it comes to playing quarterback for the Broncos, but more from an African-American standpoint. And through my connections, I reached out to a guy by the name of Terry Hanna, and I was able to connect with Marlon. And it's been extraordinary for me because I remember, having these conversations with my dad, and my dad talks about the 72 Dolphins and how great they were in the undefeated season. And Marlon was a part of that team. So I got a chance to really talk to Marlon, kind of break things down, get his take on what he thought about present day African-American quarterbacks, to where we get outside of that stigma, using that title and just call them just quarterbacks. But he just spoke really highly of Russell Wilson and said that Russell was his hero. And I thought that was really profound, considering the fact that Marlon's sacrifice and being the first African-American quarterback set that up for guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Michael Vick, guys like, so many other quarterbacks that have come, after that, and quarterbacks who are looking to make a mark for themselves. Trey Lance with the San Francisco 49ers. All these quarterbacks now have to thank Marlon Briscoe for being that first quarterback, African-American quarterback, to kind of set the stage for them.
Nick, I have to ask you, there's so much that we could read and watch about Marlon. What can you tell us about this man that we will never read anywhere or see anywhere based on your relationship with him?
Well, for me, he is a national treasure. And oftentimes we don't get a chance to be around or sit down with people that we can say that they are part of history. Like, when we think about Marlon, he's not just a part of African-American history. He's a part of American history, and he's a part of the NFL. I mean, there would be no Warren Moon if it wasn't for, a guy like Marlon. I mean, there wouldn't be a Doug Williams if it wasn't a Marlon Briscoe. So he kind of set the stage for so many players that have come after him that have a chance to be the faces of NFL franchises. So, I mean, small man in stature, but just a giant as far as what he meant to the game and what he meant to his community.
No secret, there's a lesson to be learned in just about everything that we do in life. What is the greatest lesson that you have learned from Marlon Briscoe?
Well, never to give up. And in life, we know no matter what occupation, what socioeconomic background you come from, there are going to be naysayers and doubters that tell you what is not attainable, what you can't accomplish. And just looking at Marlon's career, it just really outlines what we can all model ourselves after. Just because you may not look the part and you may not have the size and not have the speed, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't achieve certain things. See, for me, my relationship with Marlon, goes deep because I was one of those players. I was undrafted, and I was told that, hey man, you're not big enough, you're not fast enough, you're this, you're that, or what have you. But I always believed in myself. And when you sit down and talk to Marlon, he always believed in himself. I mean, just think about it. I mean, being with the Broncos at that time where they were not looking at African-American quarterbacks, he negotiated with the team to get a 3-day tryout at the quarterback position because he believed in himself. And that just speaks to power of who Marlon was, and the person I remember him for.
Okay, we have just a couple of minutes, less than a couple of minutes, but I did want to ask you about the National Football Foundation Hall of Fame. So he's inducted, high school, college, now the national level in 2016. What must it have been like for a 71-year-old man, then 71, to have such an honor bestowed on him, Nick?
Well, I mean, everyone wants to be validated and acknowledged for their accomplishments to society, whatever they do. And to be in the Hall of Fame of any magnitude, to know that you are personally enshrined, they would never take that away. And even after you're gone, people will be able to go to that place, read the information, and learn about who you were and what your contributions were to your community, your college, or even to any sporting franchise. So for him, I know it had to be great to kind of finally feel acknowledged based on his accomplishments.
Okay, thank you. We have about a minute remaining. Nick, I'm going to start with you, and then we're gonna graciously let you go here. How do you want Marlon to be remembered? Just a few sentences.
Known as a fighter, a guy that never really gave up, someone who always believed in himself, and someone who said, well, I want everyone else to look at me and what my trials and tribulations have been. I'm not perfect, but at the end of the day, I never gave up.
Nick Ferguson, I want to thank you sincerely for joining us today, and I want to wish you the very best moving forward. I'm going to move on now to Gene. All right, Gene, what do you want Marlon to be remembered for? Just a few sentences.
Well, because of his leadership abilities from third grade, youth football, youth athletics, college athletics, and also professional athletics. But prior to it, he was an honor student, and he believed in education. He put education first before all those other activities. Okay. And a person that never had any doubt, he believed he could.
Thank you. Bill, just 15 seconds.
I would echo everything that Nick and Gene has said about him, and I would just add that I'll always remember him for the social cultural impact he's had on not only his own career, but the community, the university. We all benefited greatly from that.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Talking about Marlon Briscoe, tribute to him today. I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank all of our viewers for watching. We will see you next week.
It's about being anybody that you want to be, not letting somebody tell you what you can or cannot do. So there are a lot of messages out there, that I've experienced. I tell them that, even though you do positive things, you do things that merit certain opportunities, sometimes those opportunities are denied, but you can never give up. You got to be persistent in life and face these challenges. And, even when things don't go right, you got to stand up to those challenges and make them, and hopefully they'll turn around in your favor.
More information and program archives can be found at nebraskapublicmedia.org/considerthis. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.